Hello everyone, and I hope that you're enjoying the day so far. It's been really great to see some of your cars on our social media channels, and there'll be more of those later, along with the reveal of the Mustang Mach-E. It's my privilege today to bring you some exclusive looks at some of the vehicles here at Ford's Innovation and Heritage Centre in Dagenham. We've been granted access for your event so we can bring you closer to some of the rarest Fords that we have in this collection. So whilst we all love the blue oval, the one thing that really gets us all going is performance. And Ford's history is littered with absolute sporting icons, from World Rally Championship winning vehicles to Formula One vehicles, and also to some of our fantastic performers in endurance racing like Le Mans. Later on, we may even be fortunate enough to see a very rare GT70, which is the spiritual successor to the legendary GT40. So come with me as we explore the Innovation and Heritage Centre in more depth. So the first car I want to share with you all today is actually the very last Capri. Now, the Capri had a production range all the way from the 60s all the way through to 1986, and this was the very final Capri 280 Brooklands, and the reason it was called the Brooklands was for this fantastic Brooklands green paint. It also had those RS style alloy wheels to really complement the look, and some colour coding on the front grille and around those twin headlights. Now, I've always been a fan of the Capri. My uncles, when I was growing up, had a Capri Mark III like this, as did a couple of my college friends as well. And what always strikes you is the sheer length of this bonnet. But believe it or not, it wasn't always to hold a 2.8 litre V6 engine like this one. You could actually get the Capri with a more frugal and economical 1.3 litre engine as well. A rear wheel drive vehicle too, so always needed that extra level of care and attention on a greasy, wet or icy road, but an absolute icon. Subsequent coupes that came after this were of course the Ford Probe and the Cougar, but for me the Capri is a fantastic place to start your tour today. Well, walking around here, they say you should never meet your heroes. Growing up, my dad had a Mark I Escort, so seeing this one in the flesh for the first time in about 30 years certainly brings back some great memories for me. The Mark I Escort was launched in 1968 and came with 3 engines as standard, which was an 1100, a 1.3 and a 1.6, although later on they did introduce a 2 litre engine to the range as well. Now, Ford have been synonymous with motorsport, and this vehicle is a result of that motorsport pedigree. So launched to fit in between the Escort GT and the twin cam, and also in celebration of the Mexico Rally, this Escort Mark I Mexico was produced from 1970 to 1974. The one we have here, finished in this absolutely amazing orange, is a 1974 model and also has the addition of the option pack. The option pack bringing with it that walnut veneer on the dash, the clock and the Recaro seats, to name just a few of those special details. So an absolute thrill for me to be here with this Mark I Escort. So following on then from the Escort Mexico, we meet its younger brother, you might say, with the Mark III Escort XR3i. Now, if there is a car that I'm kicking myself for not buying, it's one of these. I had an opportunity to buy one in the mid-90s and passed it up, and to this day I regret it, and having seen this one in the flesh, I really do kick myself now that I didn't make that purchase. The Mark III Escort was particularly significant for Ford because Mark I and Mark II had been a rear-wheel drive car, and this was a front-wheel drive with a hatchback as well, giving our customers much more flexibility. Of course, not only did that mean that the styling was a lot better packaged, the vehicle could be more efficient, and it spawned several body styles as well, from a 3-door to a 5-door to an estate and even a convertible, and of course the all-important commercial vehicle variants. But for me, My heart will always belong to an XR3i, seeing them in the mid-80s and early 90s as I did. So we've had a small flavour of some of the performance vehicles here with the Escort MK2 and the XR3i. But obviously one of Ford's other strengths is commercial vehicles, and I instantly gravitated to this little flatbed here. This is a Fordson flatbed, an E83W, which means it could carry about half a tonne. Now, this predates 1953 because I know that from 1953 onwards, the commercial vehicles were known as Thames right up until the introduction of the very first Mark I Transit in 1965. Now, this was a very versatile vehicle, particularly in the Second World War, where the back end could be a van and it could also be made into an ambulance as well. But it had a little bit of a quirk in it. This particular vehicle had an engine which was offset to the left-hand side. So that was great if you were the driver, but less so if you were the passenger. So predating the Transit van, Ford commercial vehicles were branded as Thames. And launched in 1961, this was a modified version of the Anglia 105E Saloon. Actually, in real terms, the front end is the same, but as soon as you get to the bulkhead, everything else is different because the needs of the commercial customers, even back in 1961, meant that this vehicle had to do a job and earn those businesses money. We still notice though some of those key design cues and key innovations from Ford, such as the front driver and passenger doors, which actually flick up towards the back. That was to help the drivers to avoid those high curbs so they could open and close the doors freely, so thus helping their access in and out of the vehicle. This one is a very rare 7 kilowatt version. In total, there were about 3 different weights that this vehicle could take, and this one was kindly donated to the centre back in 1988. So as well as some of those performance cars that we've already seen, one of the biggest performers over the last 50 odd years has been the Transit commercial range. And this is the vehicle that started it all, a 1965 Ford Transit Custom. So this was actually going to be called the V Series. It was only when it arrived at Ford's headquarters with a big Transit sticker on it that a decision was made to change the name, and what a change that has made. Transit has now become a legendary name across all commercial vehicles and still dominates the marketplace to this day. This one being the Mark I, it came with all of those things that we expect from a modern day Transit. It had great ride, great handling, great performance and great load carrying capabilities. I particularly like the sliding front doors. It really gives it a character of its own, which is something maybe a little bit missing on today's models, but an icon of its time. And it's that legend of Transit that's been built upon over a number of years. So let's take a look now at the Transit Connect. And this one isn't your normal Transit Connect. Let's think about taking an RS Focus and merging it with a Transit Connect as we share with you a very exclusive vehicle. So fast forward now to the early 2000s in the timeline of Transit vans, and Ford introduced in 2002 the Transit Connect. This was a departure from the Escort van that had preceded it and was on its own unique platform. This particular one in 2004 was developed by the team over in Ford of Europe and housed a nice little secret under the bonnet. That's right, they dropped in a Focus RS engine, added in the 18-inch Oz racing wheels to the exterior as well, and also put in some Sparco style rally seats and a roll cage, making this one of the fastest performing Transit Connects ever produced. So this Mark VI Transit was built by the Ford PR team to celebrate Ford's participation in the World Rally Championship. So if you look back to 2001, you'll be able to see that the Focus of the same time had the same Martini livery. But it's really the details of this particular vehicle that have drawn my eye. With inside, you've got both the name of Grist and of course Colin McRae. On the outside we can see Carlos Sainz's name, and a lot of you will be aware of his son Carlos Sainz Jr., who currently races for Ferrari in F1. This vehicle was also uprated. It had the same 2.4 turbo diesel engine, but it gave 165 PS and was capable of speeds up to 130 miles an hour. Fitted with a rally-inspired dashboard as well as a roll cage as well, it is really a unique vehicle amongst the heritage range and one worth closer inspection. So we've just met the World Rally Transit, which was in that fantastic Martini livery. But just rolling a few years before that, we were still in the realms of Escort and Escort Cosworth. And the vehicle that we have here now is the Portuguese rally winner from 1993, driven by Francois Delacour. So a really rare and famous Escort and a member of the Ford family, and very privileged to be with that vehicle today. In the early 1980s, the World Rally Championship as we knew it went to what they would call Group B. Now these were bespoke vehicles made specially for the rally stage, but had to have a level of homologation. For Ford, we introduced a legend, the rarest 200. In total, just 200 of these, 6 prototypes and 194 others were produced. And before us today is the last in that line, number 200 in its road-going trim. This had a 1.8 turbocharged engine producing 250 brake horsepower. This was an absolute brute on the road. However, we know how the Group B rally story ended. Because of having such powerful engines in lightweight vehicles and too many accidents, the whole Group B rally series got canned, and with it, one of our most famous but short-lived Ford products. So when we said we were going to bring you some of the key performance vehicles in Ford's back catalogue, I don't suppose many of you were expecting to see a transit van. This isn't any ordinary transit van, this is the Super Van 3. So back in the early 70s, Ford released the Super Van 1. And then later on in 1984 they released Super Van 2. This is actually Super Van 2, but rather than creating a brand new vehicle, this is a heavily modified version to create the Super Van 3 that we now see before us. Powered by a Cosworth engine, the top speed is around about 150 miles an hour. And in case any of you eagle-eyed viewers think that I've grown during the course of the walk around here at the Innovation and Heritage Centre, it is actually a trick of the eye. This Super Van is actually a scale version of a full-size Transit sitting on a Ford racing chassis. So it's not a full-size Transit and obviously wasn't developed for delivering your local parcels, but in the rear we'll find that Cosworth engine. For some of you watching this, this will be the pinnacle of performance Fords, probably the most legendary story covering the Ford GT40. Originally named the GT, it wasn't until somebody had measured it and said that it was 40 inches high that it got the nickname GT40, which is stuck for over 50 years now. Of course, we all know about the fight with Ferrari at Le Mans, and it first competed in Le Mans in 1964 before getting that 1-2-3, that iconic 1-2-3 finish in 1966, before winning again in 1967. It was after 1967 that Ford then withdrew from World Endurance cars until 2016 with the current GT. Now this vehicle has a 4.7 litre engine and was capable of 197 miles an hour. And whilst that outright speed is really impressive, it's the design of this car which has meant that it's such an icon. Features such as this dome on the driver's door, specially developed so the driver could put their crash helmet on and still drive the vehicle. It was function fitting the form and form fitting the function. We then go to the rear, and that's where people like Dan Gurney really got to the headlines as well, for that gurney strip on the edge of that rear spoiler as well, to help with that rear downforce and turbulence of the vehicle, to make it much more stable on the Le Mans track. So an absolute icon. This one here has been designed to replicate the Le Mans racing vehicles, although never actually raced itself, but still a very unique vehicle here at the Innovation and Heritage Centre. So fast forward to 2005, and we now meet the latest in the line of Ford GTs. So very much stylistically taking those cues from the original, which we've just seen a few moments ago. This particular GT is powered by a 5.4 litre engine, giving off 550 brake horsepower. Top speed is only slightly more than the original GT40's 197 at 205, so just that 8 miles per hour difference, which really shows actually how advanced the original GT40 was. Again, those styling cues go through. That slightly taller body at 44 inches, as I've previously mentioned, but an iconic vehicle in the Ford lineup, and one which wouldn't be replaced until the Ford GT was launched in 2016. So we've now moved down to what is affectionately known as the Shed, which is the original Heritage Centre here on the Dagenham site, and that's because we want to finish off with two of the rarest vehicles that we have in the Ford collection. Now this one is a 1937 Tug, based on the Model Y, and is one of only 111 ever produced. Now, if you can see on the door, you'll see those famous words of Cadbury, and this was in fact sold to Cadbury's and Fry back in 1937 for the princely sum of £164. So the three-wheeler Tug was a design also known earlier as a Dorset, and again there was a version very similar called the Devon by another manufacturer, but this spanned from 1935 onwards and is a fantastic example of a vehicle of its kind. So where the story of the Ford GT was all about winning at Le Mans, the GT70 was actually conceived to battle in the World Rally Championship stages. After a particularly disappointing Monte Carlo rally, the team decided that what they needed was a two-seater mid-engine sports car. 4 of these vehicles were produced, and this is one of only those 4 still remaining to our knowledge, and was restored back in 2002. However, in terms of competing, this vehicle didn't really see the light of day. Because of changes in the World Rally Championships, it basically got designed out and replaced with what we now know as those rally cars, going through the transition of the Class B, where we met the RS200 earlier. So one of the very rarest and most prized possessions here in the Ford Heritage Centre, and it feels quite fitting that this has yet to be transferred to the new site as we bid farewell to what is affectionately known as the old Shed. I'm going to move back into the main Innovation Centre so I can let you know what's coming up for the rest of your day. Well, what a collection. Now, I'm sure that you would have all rather been with me here at the Innovation and Heritage Centre, but hopefully this has been the next best thing. Still to come today, we take another look at some of your vehicles, so be sure to take those photos of that sticker. That will upload it onto our Facebook page so we can admire some of your hidden treasures too. I'm now going to pass you back to the other Alan. Don't forget we have that Mustang Mach-E reveal happening later, but from this Alan here in Dagenham, it's goodbye from me.